Welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining this special Worth Live event with our partner, the Waldorf Astoria Residences, where we'll be talking about the power of legacy and the importance of investing in luxury assets. Firstly, I hope you and your loved ones are keeping well during what has and continues to be a challenging year for so many people. I'm Juliet Scott-Croxford, CEO at Worth Media and your moderator for today, and I'm delighted to be joined by our special guest, Dan Tubb, Senior Director of Sales of the Towers of the Waldorf Astoria Residences, Rebecca Foerster, US President of ALROSA, and Kathleen Entwistle, Managing Director and Private Wealth Advisor at Morgan Stanley Private Wealth Management. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Our intention at Worth is to create conversations that help inspire and inform our community, many of whom are investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders who value legacy and luxury, as well as want to leave a positive impact on the world. And we call that Worth Beyond Wealth. So we hope you enjoy this session and find it valuable. In this show, we're exploring what it means to be a brand that has sustained value through generations, which classes of assets yield the best long-term value, and the advantages of investing in branded assets. So we're delighted to be joined by leaders in their field, Dan Tubb, Kathleen Entwistle, and Rebecca Foerster, to share their perspectives on the importance of investing in luxury assets right now. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. It's great to see so many of you joining today. Welcome. This is a conversation and we do welcome questions from you. You can set your chat to all panelists and attendees. And by all means, share your comments in the chat as we're having this discussion. And if you've got any questions for the speakers, also include it in there, and we can either unmute you so you can ask the question directly to the speaker at the right time, or if you prefer to stay anonymous, that's totally fine, and we'll weave it into the conversation as we go. So let's get started. The power of legacy, the importance of investing in luxury assets. Firstly, a personal check-in with you all. How are you all doing personally? And before we get going, I'd love to hear just briefly about your background and how you became involved in the luxury space. Dan, let's start with you.
Sure. So absolutely, thank you for asking. Doing very well. Thank God my entire family has stayed well through the entire pandemic situation. And the way that things have been done here in New York City has been so smart and so thorough to enable us to get back to work, at the end of June when we reopened our residential gallery here in the hotel. And people very quickly began to gain confidence in coming back in person, which we were very excited to see. But yeah, personally doing fantastic, and activities picked up a great deal here at the Towers. As far as how I got involved in luxury, it's kind of a funny story. I came to New York to take Broadway by storm, and I was absolutely convinced that everyone would bow down before me and say that I had finally arrived, and they were very happy that here I was, a Broadway star. I had a lot of fun in theater, eventually got tired of being poor. And so I was walking down the street one day and I saw a real estate office, and I was like, I like that, I could do that. And I walked in, I learned about real estate, I got my license. And I very quickly got involved with a small firm that specialized in selling new development to either investors or end users, and then either managing that asset for them as a rental and then a resale, or reselling it for them. So I was involved in new development at the luxury level very, very early, and I've been doing real estate for 20 years in Manhattan. And that's how I eventually ended up doing new development full time.
Brilliant, thanks. I had no idea we were with a Broadway star.
Well, evidently not. So.
Rebecca, welcome. How are you doing? And share a bit about your background, if you could.
Oh, thanks for having me. Doing really well. Became a grandma during this COVID pandemic, which has been a real joy. So we have a new member of Gen C, as they're calling these children, in our family, but he's amazing. Unfortunately, they live on the West Coast in California, so I'll be heading that way in a few weeks for the holidays in my full protective gear, hazmat suit, shield, gloves. I've kind of got it down pat now, so I know how to make that travel. But back to work now, pretty much in the city, was working remotely. But because there's been an incredible demand and appetite for polished diamonds, thankfully for our business, pretty much in the city every day during the week. And as Dan said, I think luckily New York has done a really good job, and feeling pretty safe to be here in the office.
And how long have you been in the luxury space, Rebecca?
I started actually my career in advertising, and one of my clients happened to have been Estee Lauder. And I made the transition from the ad side to the client side, and spent a lot of years working for all of the major cosmetic and fragrance companies like Revlon and Estee Lauder, Elizabeth Arden, and was recruited into the jewelry industry about 20 years ago, when they realized that if they didn't start branding, diamonds would really become a commodity. So had the opportunity to come in with all of the learnings from a very marketing intensive industry like the cosmetic and fragrance world, and bring it to the world of diamond jewelry. So I've been here at ALROSA for almost 2 years now. So I really enjoy the mining end of the supply chain, because that's where it all starts, and that's really where the journey and the story of the diamond begins.
Brilliant, thank you. And we'll learn a little bit about the history of both of your brands in a second. Kathy, I want to say hi to you and welcome. I know you're sort of coming in from the finance angle of this, but how are you doing personally? And if you could share a bit of your background in the private wealth space.
Sure. Doing well. I think we've all had a big adjustment, but we're learning to reset and just get through every day in a positive way. Family's healthy and all is good. So thanks for asking. In terms of, the financial world and being in private wealth, I started building a business back in the early 2000s with private clients. And as I continued to build this business, my clients were becoming wealthier and more sophisticated. And just like anything else, the more you have of something, the more complicated it becomes. And you need to start thinking strategically and outside the box and bring in all different areas when considering your wealth. It's not just stocks and bonds anymore. We're talking about all different types of assets, like those that we're speaking about today, as well as thinking about estate planning and wealth transfer and gifting and all sorts of things. So it's more challenging, but it's really rewarding to help families figure out what's best for them and make a positive impact on their lives.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kathy. And I want to talk about the power of legacy, and I'd love to hear a little bit about the history of the Waldorf and ALROSA brands, and how long they've been around, because they really have sustained value throughout generations. Dan, share a little bit about the history of Waldorf, if you could.
Yeah, so the Waldorf has existed in 2 locations in Manhattan in its history. The original was at 34th Street and 5th Avenue, which is a very famous location. If you think about that, that's where the Empire State Building sits today. And so we had 2 Astor cousins, William Waldorf Astor and John Jacob Astor IV, who were intensely competitive, but ironically lived right next door to each other. And at one point, they each tore down their family mansion at that location and built a namesake hotel in the late 1800s. So, but the good part of the story is that in their rivalry, they ended up creating the Waldorf Astoria brand by joining the hotels together, the Waldorf and the Astoria, which they built to compete with each other. And the Waldorf-Astoria was born. And then in 1929, they sold the land to the people who built the Empire State Building. And the Waldorf that we know today at 50th Street and Park Avenue was built in 12 months, 1930 to 1931, 52 stories. And so the hotel that people in our generation, in our lifetime, have experienced has been here at the corner of 50th and Park for nearly 100 years on its own. And so the global recognition of that brand based on the longevity of the hotel and its brand, And in both cases, when the hotels were built, they were the largest and most luxurious hotels in the world. And so it was a very epic beginning for a brand that became something that really caught the world's attention.
And what role does legacy play in it, do you think? Why is legacy so important as you continue to build the brand and ensure its longevity?
Well, it's, as I said, in the two iterations, it was something that was very prominent. And so it attracted this attention. And actually the space that we're in now on 50th and Park, it became known as the Unofficial Palace of New York, meaning that it was a place that people saw as a dignified, appropriate, and elegant place and secure place to stay as a guest, and also in the case of geopolitical leaders and royalty and business leaders from all over the world to stay here and hold their most prominent meetings here. And so people gave this sense of value to the hotel itself. And being a part of that, experiencing that, and in some cases experiencing that over time, multiple times, it tends to have someone buy into the brand and create a legacy of their own. For example, when I first came to New York, I stayed here with my mom, and it was because it's where she always stayed. And so she wanted to take me to the place where she stayed in New York City that was the most prominent, most luxurious hotel in the world. And that goes back generations. And so that opportunity to, pass down to the next generation what is important in your mind and what the world sees as, something that has value and legacy and history is very, very important.
I love that. And Rebecca, for ALROSA, you're a diamond manufacturer, and I think the diamond industry has kind of transformed quite significantly over the past decade. I'd love to hear a bit of history about the brand, and again, what role does legacy play when you're thinking about diamonds?
Yeah, so we're actually the largest diamond mining company in the world in terms of number of carats or production. We actually produce 1/3 of the global rough production in the world. And diamond mining started in Russia back in the 30s, and it was started by actually a woman named Letitia, who was a great explorer and had tremendous passion, and a geologist, and she found that there were geological opportunities for mines in the Siberia area where our mines today are located. We have 12 mines. It's actually, the area is called Yakutia, but to most of it's known as Siberia, near the Arctic Circle. And ALROSA, as the company it is today, actually started in 1992. Russian diamonds have been known for decades as, beautiful material, amazingly cut, all about precision and beauty, very much part of the arts, like the Bolshoi and all of the other luxury products that we know that come out of Russia. So quality and really known for the cut. In terms of diamonds being a legacy, I always refer to diamonds as sort of the journey of the diamond. Every diamond has its own unique story. There's indeed a legacy there that gets passed on from generation to generation. There's nothing more symbolic of love and commitment than a diamond. It has so much inherent value in so many ways that I'm sure we'll talk about more as we get into the session.
Thank you. She was a smart woman. Kathy, you talk in your work that you do, you talk a lot about what does legacy mean, and with your clients, what kind of legacy do they want to leave? Why is legacy so important when it comes to passing down generational wealth?
Yeah, there's a lot of history, behind it. And as Dan had said earlier, he went to the Waldorf with his mother because that's where she had spent time and she wanted to share that experience with him. And I think that's really what it is. It's about sharing your values, your priorities, and your experiences with your family. Because when you get to a point of wealth where there's just, it's not defining who you are. You know, wealth does not define you. What defines you is what you do with that wealth, how you enjoy it, how you enjoy your family. And it's a lot different than just, you know, saying like, oh, where are we going to go on vacation? It's like, you know what, we have this wonderful spot that our family gathers every holiday and we all come together and you're creating memories and you're creating an experience.
There's a lovely comment here from Sean Carter. He said the Waldorf Hotel taught me the art of living from a young age, much respect for the brand and what it's taught me in the following years. Dan, the Waldorf has a huge history around kind of international figures and celebrities that have called the Waldorf their home. Talk to us about what was behind the decision to make the rare opportunity to actually own a home available through the towers of the Waldorf Astoria.
Well, it's as we talked about before, this was a place, a true destination hotel, right in the center of Manhattan that had the qualities of being secure, very elegant, and very appropriate for people of, you know, great stature to stay here and hold meetings here. And so along with that, this has always been a residential building because in the top of the Waldorf, there was a section that was always called the Towers, and they had their own separate entrance. And so there was this elevated level of service and exclusivity already attached to living at the Waldorf. And very prominent people like that. There are 3 US presidents that moved into the Towers after their terms. We had Hoover and Truman and Eisenhower lived here for many, many years. People like Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe and the very famous American composer Cole Porter lived in the Towers for 25 years. And so it was a natural extension of that to now give the opportunity for people, many of whom have had these experiences at the hotel already and see it as a coveted place for them to spend time again, to now own what could never be owned. And in this proven residential address in New York City, as the Towers had always established that. One quick story in just expanding on legacy and the opportunity to now own something. There's a story about a family that for 30 years, they rented the Cole Porter Suite, which is a very extensive, very beautifully designed suite on the upper floors of the hotel. And for 30 years, they spent their family reunion in that suite. So you don't do that unless the way that you're being treated makes you come back. And so that legacy and power of living at the Towers has really been birthed out of the establishment and the sense of responsibility of creating and maintaining this brand of the Waldorf Astoria. And so it was a natural extension to now offer the opportunity to buy a piece of the Towers, perhaps even part of the suite where Frank Sinatra lived, or Dwight Eisenhower, etc.
And why was why was this renovation historically significant, and how will that restoration impact sort of the generations to come?
Well, when you look at the landscape around the hotel here at Park Avenue and 50th Street, if you look close, you see one of the largest collections of landmarked buildings in all of Manhattan. So why is that? There was a decision made long ago that this would be an appropriate and a significant place in the city to design and build architecture that would contribute to the fabric of the city, and also the legacy of design and creation and art that architecture is for what is the greatest city in the world. And so being among all these landmarks like St. Bartholomew's Cathedral is right next door. The RCA Victor building, which is gorgeous, is right next door. Lever House, which is a totally different decade, when the first glass business, commercial skyscraper is right up the street, et cetera. and Rockefeller Center, et cetera, et cetera. So the sense of responsibility of maintaining this landmark in a way that is befitting of those around it was very, very important. And so the developer took that responsibility very, very seriously, and not only responded to the fact that the exterior was landmarked, but also because of the experiences that people have had inside this building and the intense desire to come back and relive those experiences and create new ones. Because of that, the developer decided with Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, our architect, to landmark many of the interior spaces in the first few floors of the hotel so that people could come back and see those spaces lovingly restored. And they, quite honestly, the developer has taken that responsibility very seriously because they know they own what is not only a New York landmark, but really a global icon that so many people feel ownership to. And so it was very important to do it the right way.
And we will be sharing a video at the end of this session just to bring to life some of those things that you're talking about. And behind you in your backdrop is the entrance, right?
Yeah. This is the Park Avenue entrance of the Waldorf Astoria, and that everybody knows so well. And it's such an inviting presence here on Park Avenue. And we're very excited to be bringing that back, to the city and to the world.
But before we move on to kind of why we should be investing in alternative assets right now, Rebecca, talking about ownership and legacy, what does it mean for someone to own an ALROSA mined diamond?
Well, obviously, all of our diamonds have complete provenance and transparency and mine of origin, which has become a very important part of choosing products today. People are very much interested in knowing where their product came from and what the story behind it is. So obviously, it's a non-conflict area. Everything that we do there is completely sustainable. ALROSA is in the DNA of the company. Everything is all about commitment to the environment and the communities in which we mine. And one of the reasons I joined the company was because we give more revenue than any mining company in the world back to the communities. It's a large percentage. We have over 500 charities that give back to the people there every year. And without the diamond mining industry in that part of the world, the livelihood of so many people would not be the same, just from education to healthcare to all kinds of programming. So you're not only just buying a product, you're buying a whole story that comes behind it. And so you can feel very proud to own an ALROSA diamond, and certainly give it forward to generation after generation with, really good feelings, not only about the person that you're giving it to, but also the people that have been helped along the way in the whole manufacturing of this product.
And 2020 has been a strange year, obviously for businesses with lots of ups and downs. How has it impacted the diamond space, Rebecca? And I'm also curious as to whether you think the purpose-driven element of the brand and the kind of clear link with the sort of sustainable practices helps weather any storm economic crisis that we hit.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. If you look at historically times of crisis like 2008, it's almost counterintuitive, but diamonds and diamond jewelry always seem to do extremely well. And I believe that's because there's always some kind of shift in consumer values and in insight and sentiment. And there's nothing more symbolic than you can give to someone who maybe is nervous about the future or feels a little, concerned and not grounded, than a piece of beautiful diamond jewelry that says, I'm thinking of you, I love you, I care about you, whether it's a new piece of jewelry or you're passing it down, from your jewelry box. And so we've seen that in the past. Now with the pandemic, it's a whole new kind of event, nothing that we've really experienced before. But yet we still see that as well, where there's been a huge shift in market share towards diamonds from other soft luxury goods like pocketbooks and shoes and all the things that we were losing out to for so many years, partially because people are quarantined, I guess. And I think also value shift that, showing that kind of consumption is not really what it's about right now. It's more about family and relationships and commitment and staying really close to home. And we've seen a tremendous growth in diamonds, particularly, in the sizes for engagement rings. The bridal and engagement ring market has really just boomed. People have just said, okay, I'm going to do it now, and I'm going to buy that diamond, and I'm actually going to spend more than I ever thought I would, because, there's value there. And it's a great symbolic way of expressing how I feel and how I want you to feel.
It's so interesting thinking about the consumer behavior and how I think, I think people that are in a sort of privileged position have been able to kind of just sort of reset and kind of go, okay, what's important to me? I'm going to do these things now. So just a reminder for everyone listening, please do share any comments or questions in the chat. Love to hear more Waldorf stories and experiences as well. I know there was a couple that came through. I want to talk about why we should be investing in alternative assets right now. And Kathy, I'm interested in your perspective on this. Why are alternative assets a good investment given the context of where we are economically?
Yeah, so I would say for most of our clients, I'm always looking to have the basic investments like we spoke about earlier, the stocks, the bonds, that sort of thing. But alternative assets and alternative investments have always been an integral part of the portfolio, because what happens when you bring other types of assets into your portfolio, you are bringing in non-correlated assets that are not going to move in the same direction as maybe stocks will be moving. So there's a comfort in that respect that you're buying something that will not directly react to markets going up and down. And because so many people are in tune with the markets every day, if there's assets we can bring in to, to deflect that or to help, balance out the portfolio, it's positive. And I'd say too, I really enjoyed what Rebecca had to say about, the sustainability of what they're doing, what their company is choosing to do by giving back to their communities. I think that over the last, 5+ years, sustainable investing has been really important, but it hasn't really grabbed like mainstream yet. And I think in the last year with COVID, we're starting to see clients really get more interested in making sure that there's an added value back to others, not just for themselves. So for all the things that we're talking about today, markets are volatile. In the short term, we don't know where we're going. We do look, long-term views, but still it is nice to have something tangible that you can hold on to or that you can share with your family. And just from a jewelry perspective, I have my mother's ring, my grandmother's bracelet, different jewelry. I love to wear my mother's and my grandmother's jewelry. They're not here anymore, but every time I put them on, I think like I get that like power from them, and it makes me feel very confident. So I think the same way that, with diamonds and so forth, to be able to pass that along, that is tremendous value, both monetarily and also from, a personal standpoint.
And is there anything that, what do investors need to know about the strategy around investing in alternative assets, and how does that differ? What are some of the things that they should be thinking about?
Basically, what we'll do is when we look at somebody's total wealth, we'll look at it in sort of like an allocation. So allocate a portion to investments in the markets, a portion to real estate, a portion to alternative private equity and things like that. And then tangible assets. It could be art, it could be jewelry. And again, investment homes, vacation homes, things like that. And it's usually a percentage of what, their total net worth. And it's really about just getting comfortable with learning about it first and really understanding that asset class. And once you get comfortable and you start visiting, different experts and things like that, you might decide this is something I would like, to move forward with.
Yeah. And Dan and Rebecca, we've discussed before that alternative assets are not just about enjoying the asset, but also having it serve you. How do your brand do that? Dan, do you want to go first? How would the Waldorfs do that?
Are you?
You're on mute, Dan. Sorry, Dan, you're on mute. Thank you.
You didn't miss much. Sorry. I'll start again. I apologize. So in talking about, making a purchase these days in anything, as the ladies said, it needs to be something that has, is unique, that has the ability to communicate inherent worth to both to the buyer and to those in the marketplace who may be the eventual buyer of that asset in the future. And it needs to have the ability to hold value and grow in value. And so when you look at a purchase like the Waldorf, like the towers of the Waldorf, making a real estate purchase today has to be smart. It has to be something that has those three qualities of being very unique, of communicating value, and also having the ability to hold value and grow. And so when we look at the branded residence segment of real estate, it's really what has been taking off for a number of years now, because it gives the buyer a sense of credibility because of the brand, familiarity if they know the brand and have experienced it. And also it gives a sense of security, knowing, especially if that brand has been around for a long time. And so in that way, I could go on about how the service and the lifestyle, which we'll talk about in a moment, will serve the investor at the towers of the Waldorf. But thinking about it as an investment itself, it's something that has the capacity to meet those bullet points of being a smart investment and to serve the investor, not just today, but over time.
And it's about that supply and demand too. It's unique, it's so unique. It's not something that everybody can have. So there's not a lot of supply, and it will create demand as well. And when you create demand, that usually increases the price.
Yeah, so just to speak to that briefly, I've never opened a real estate development for sales that has the immense amount of interest and inquiry that we've had. We've had over 6,000 inquiries from across the world, literally, and then from coast to coast in the United States, and also very heavily here in New York. So that very well-rounded demographic looking at the towers of the Waldorf as a smart investment and a valuable investment. And as you said, Kathleen, something that's very unique and can't be recreated, makes it something that people want to be a part of. And it's been very dramatic.
And Dan, just building on that, what makes the towers at Waldorf Astoria a particularly attractive investment right now? And for people that might be nervous about investing in New York City, mm-hmm. why is that pertinent, and why would a full-time residence be an interesting time to think about that?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the points that I just made, in that, if someone is making a real estate investment today, you want it to have those qualities, and the towers check all those boxes for sure. There are glass towers all over New York City. I've sold many of them. I've also sold legacy buildings that have been restored, like the one here at the Waldorf. And if you look back over time at those, over the last 20 years of the things that I've been had the opportunity to sell, it's the legacy investments. It's the partially restored buildings that have history and connection already that have performed better over time. Because if you build something that can be recreated and have a look-alike, it automatically brings down the value of the original purchase. It dilutes it, as it were. And so in looking at this opportunity at the Waldorf, that's another aspect that it has that really sets it apart from the rest of the landscape. And then, you know, Kathleen, you very smartly pointed out, you know, the demand level, because it's demand for my purchases of selling the building today, and demand for the rentals of the investor, and demand for the exit strategy of any purchaser here that make it very unique.
Right, and Rebecca, how does the ALROSA diamond sort of stretch beyond enjoying it, but kind of serve someone that invests in it as well?
Well, I mean, you know, continuing to talk about supply and demand, it's clear that we are finding less and less mines in the world. So opening of new mines or finding new sites, you know, it's not happening. As a matter of fact, this year, one of the major mines is closing in Australia, and another one will close in the Northwest Territories of Canada in the next few years. So diamonds are definitely becoming rarer. And so from an investment standpoint, that's a good thing. And also, you know, diamonds are, you know, something that you can use and nothing will happen to it. It won't depreciate. You can wear it, you can enjoy it, or you can just put it away in your safe and let it sit there. It doesn't cost any money, you know, it doesn't demand anything, any maintenance or anything like that. And so, you know, from an alternative investment standpoint, you know, for forever in history, it's been, you know, definitely something that people value in terms of, you know, wealth and being able to take that with them. You know, there's so many stories of people moving across the world, whether they had to or not, you know, and just, you know, diamonds were their form of wealth and future. So.
Rebecca, do you think that the diamonds that you're currently mining are going to have even more value to them from the standpoint that they're, you know, one of the last remaining ones, like being able to say that you had, you know, you have one of the last diamonds available in the world? Or
Well, I don't think we're there yet. I mean, you know, we have 12 mines that I think will continue to use for quite some time. But I think, you know, it's clear that the inherent value is there. And you know, I don't think there's any risk in investing in diamonds. And there's all kinds of levels of investment. You know, we're seeing in this pandemic a lot more activity around the really, really high-end diamonds, the one-of-a-kind natural color diamonds, you know, the pinks and the blues, which, you know, really carry a lot of inherent value that collectors are buying as legacies for their family, either to just keep away or to put into a significant piece of jewelry that, you know, will travel down through the history of the family. I just have one quick story I want to share about the
Yeah, please do.
really fascinating. So the Waldorf Astoria has served as a very significant building and place within the diamond jewelry community. I'm a member of the 24 Karat Club, which is a prestigious group of people in the industry. You join personally, not based on your company, and you have to be sponsored to be a part of this group. It's all about giving back and doing all kinds of things beyond just your job. And every year, the big event happened at the Waldorf Astoria for many, many years. When the club started, and there weren't even women allowed in the club. Now there's like 12 of us, but and with all the renovations and everything, we had to change for the first time, I think, in over 40 years, the location of this event. And it has been painful because all the memories are there, all of the legacy, everything that you've talked about, you know, it's just not the same. No matter where we've tried to relocate this event, it's constantly talked about. So there is definitely power and legacy in that building, and it adds to any experience that you have there. So I just wanted to share that with you from our jewelry community.
Well, Rebecca, I want to welcome you back to the Grand Ballroom at the Waldorf Astoria. I know this is where your event was held, and it is all the organizations like your organization and all the others are now calling to book the hotel in advance. It will open in late 2022, and the ballroom, which I'm here in one of the boxes, is completely restored back to 1931.
Wow.
The original design, but with all brand new infrastructure for technology and lighting and sound and all those things. And so the events of your organization and the others that are going to be coming back to the hotel will be even more spectacular than they were in the past. So come on back. We'll be ready for you very soon.
Look at that.
But also the jewelry connection, I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to. One gentleman in particular who was very, very involved in the diamond district here, which is very close by. And he did so many meetings and so many deals right here in the Waldorf, sometimes just casually sitting on one of the mezzanine lounges in the Park Avenue lobby. And so he had made that point to me that this was a very important location for the industry. Yeah.
What about the classes of assets that provide the best long-term value? Kathy, I'm interested in that from a financial standpoint, but also Dan and Rebecca, what's the case of picking a long-term alternative asset that you can enjoy now over a traditional asset where you'll see a quicker financial return? Who wants to take that first? Dan, do you want to go?
Yeah, so the idea of making an investment today in that would be alternative in real estate, taking a piece of liquidity and putting it here, especially if that's tied to interest rate activity, certainly that's not going to perform right now. And if you are choosing to leverage the asset, and most everyone is because money is so cheap, if you're leveraging the purchase that you're making here at the Waldorf, that's a very, very smart play in the end because your interest-based assets are not going to perform. With regard to stability, obviously Kathleen mentioned the point that the markets are very volatile. And also Rebecca made the point that diamonds are what people grab when in a time of crisis and take with them. It's portable. But in the case of real estate, it's something that if you look back over the history of Manhattan, and we've tracked this in the luxury sector all the way back to the 1980s, you see these, the moments in time like the 1990 recession, the 2008 financial crisis, et cetera. And then Manhattan recovers very, very efficiently from those events. And you see that in real estate pricing and inventory. Pricing goes up, inventory reduces. And so we're going to see that trend again after this downturn as well. So to speak to why today, it's because there's a moment coming when the inventory will be less, there will be less choice, and the prices will stabilize and increase. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but we're in one of those opportunity moments, those low spots, where people should take advantage of taking the best choice of the inventory and making the best deal that they can in this type of situation, because in Manhattan, they know that a brighter day is coming. So I think it's a very, very wise choice to look at real estate, and especially, as we've pointed out, unique, inherently valuable real estate with a history.
Yeah,
and make that purchase.
Yeah, okay. And Rebecca, in the diamond space, it's slightly different in terms of you've got that scarcity. You don't see prices of diamonds coming down, but thoughts on the sort of the long-term investment versus a quick financial return?
I mean, not dissimilar to what anybody else has said. I just think it's a good way to balance your portfolio, and have something that, is a little bit more stable and reliable and also enjoyable at the same time. I mean, it's great to have a portfolio of stocks and all those kind of things. But, owning a great legacy apartment or a great diamond that can be passed down as legacy and enjoying it in the meantime during a difficult period in time certainly is, I think, something that's appealing to people right now.
I have a couple of things to add to that too, Rebecca. That's all good insight, I would say a couple of things. One is we're in a dislocation, right? The market is dislocated right now. We've got a lot of unknowns. We don't know where we're going around the corner. So it's always a great time to take advantage of an opportunity during a dislocation. So now is a good time to add to your collectibles or your real estate and so forth, you know, your alternative assets. The second thing I would point out is something I think Dan touched on, and that is leverage. Wealthy people understand and like to use leverage. They like to borrow for purchasing when rates are historically low as they are today. So it is a great time to borrow to make those purchases. The other point, so dislocation, the interest rates, you know, the borrowing costs. And the last piece I would say is estate planning. You know, we don't know what the estate tax laws are going to be next year, but we know what they are this year. And we're encouraging a lot of clients now to make sure that their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted, and to get any underappreciated assets that will appreciate highly over years into trust to protect that growth. So, you know, it's just, these are three things that you can think about specifically with properties, jewelry, diamonds, so forth. Again, dislocation, taking advantage of borrowing costs, and then transfer, you know, estate planning strategies.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to get, there's a couple of questions that have come in, which I want to get to. Dan, before we do, can you just give us a glimpse of what life at the Towers would be like? I know you've got a fantastic sort of wellness space as well, but what could buyers and investors expect?
Sure. So talking about if we go to the wellness space, so one trend in luxury real estate over the last decade has really been not just a place to live or just to be fit and entertain, but to truly have a fully encompassed wellness lifestyle aspect. And so on the fourth floor of the hotel, well, in the hotel in general, there are over 100,000 square feet of restaurants, bars, amenity spaces, venues, et cetera. One of those is a 30,000 square foot wellness and fitness and spa center that is a part of the hotel. But all of those aspects of the hotel, our residents have full access to them without leaving the building. I think we're going to get some images here. And so our residents can enjoy everything that the hotel has to offer at discounted rates, including the spa and wellness facility. Now, what we're looking at right here is part of the 50,000 square feet of private residential amenities, only for the residents of the Towers, not for hotel guests, where our residents can enjoy that lifestyle of wellness, but also call up from the spa physical therapist, massage therapist, Pilates instructors, and even wellness experts who will be involved in, you know, counseling our residents on their wellness lifestyle. Any aspect of your doctor's recommendations could be, you know, implemented here in the private residential amenity. And so what we're looking at is a 25-meter Starlight pool. This is a very famous space that used to be a part of the hotel called the Starlight Roof Ballroom, and a very prominent venue that many people will remember, but now it's completely given to the residents as a 25-meter pool surrounded by light with double height windows and also a beautiful skylight above to really transport our residents to a resort-like atmosphere when they come up into the residential amenities. You see the gym there overlooking the pool. And then at the other end of the pool, we actually have a whole lounge area. If you're not going to swim, you can still come up and enjoy this area. And then on the opposite end of the pool, sort of behind us in this image, is what we call the Winter Garden, which is a beautiful space with a bar and a catering kitchen, et cetera. That was actually it. Yeah, that's the Winter Garden there. And so this harkens back to the palaces of the 1700s and 1800s in Europe, where they would build a conservatory off of the main living space that was tropically planted year round to remind in the dark months of the winter that spring is coming, and to be able to enjoy, you know, this greenery and this wellness aspect as well in this space. This is one of the many spaces that our residents can reserve or just enjoy on a daily basis.
The design and the restoration is absolutely stunning. It's absolutely beautiful, and that pool is incredible. I'm going to go to a couple of questions now.
Okay.
So we got one through. If someone's interested in making an alternative investment like a legacy apartment with a globally recognized brand name, what are the first steps they should take?
I can share some, but I'm curious. I'd like Dan to answer that from his perspective first, if that's okay.
Sure. So, you're saying that the focus is real estate for an alternative investment. So, I think maybe just go back to the points that we've established: unique, inherently valuable based on the brand, which is very, very important, and something that cannot be recreated. That's just like a diamond. You know, it's in the other sector there. Everyone is unique. And so we have 125 unique floor plans among our residences. So there are many cases, even within this one-of-a-kind building, to pick something that is also one-of-a-kind in the apartment itself. We have 25 terraced units that are one-of-a-kind. So, but I would look for those three factors, and then, you know, figure out which opportunities carry those, you know, check those boxes and pursue those and have a look at them. And we do encourage, you know, don't just come to me, look at the market, and you'll see how valuable and unique the asset we have at the towers actually is. And I'd be happy to, you know, speak to whoever that is on the phone. And we have a much more extensive presentation with all the images. And then, of course, we have our 14,000 square foot residential gallery here in the hotel. But be smart about your purchase. This is a time when you have opportunity to have choice. And as we talked about, to leverage that asset and really make the most of it. This is a great moment in time to do that.
And we will share how to reach all of our panelists after this, and we'll include it in the chat. Also, question for you, Dan, just building on that, is the Waldorf accepting in-person appointments?
Absolutely. So in late June, when New York went to phase 2, we reopened our sales gallery, and we did so, you know, Waldorf Astoria is part of the Hilton network. And so we chose to tap into what the Hilton has already established called their Clean Stay program. And so before every appointment, we have all of the forms and, you know, COVID disclosures and things like that everybody sign. But when they arrive here in the residential gallery, the entire space has been completely sanitized. And then you will actually see on each door the seal that's been placed to show you that that room that you're about to go in is completely clean and has been prepared for your arrival. And so people have comfortably come back. And I just want to say one thing about New York. If you don't live here, the perception that you have of what's happening here is vastly different from what I experience and what the ladies experience on a daily basis walking around the city. The city has really come back to life. And people have, you know, embraced the masked lifestyle, really participating in each other's wellness and supporting, you know, all the people in New York City. And so, yes, we reopened late June, and we're very, very attentive to opening safely and cleanly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the perception and sometimes the way the media portrays New York isn't quite reality.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, anything to add to anyone that would like to invest in a legacy apartment?
I would just say I would echo what Dan said. I think he had some good points, and also think about when you're doing a legacy, anything, think about what is really, you know, personal to you, what is so important, what are those values and goals that you want to share with your family, and the best place to create that.
And a question on that is around timing and recovery, realizing that we don't have a crystal ball. What anecdotal signs are out there that now is a good time to invest? Are we seeing more investors curious in more inquiry?
I would say if you look back at history, you know, we always say past cannot predict future, but if you look back at history, every time there was an event or there was something that was stunning or unexpected, or the first time it's ever happened, or we can't see around the corner, every single time that has happened, at that moment, it felt very, very big. And it felt like it was a huge movement. And then when we go back and look across history, it actually becomes less and less impactful. And the time in helps minimize that negative impact. And the people who were brave and who would invest in times when nobody else would are the ones who did incredibly well. And, we always tell our clients when we have moments like March of 2020 to stay with investing. We might make modifications or changes, but to stay in your investment plan, because once you make changes and get out, it's so hard to get back in. And I would say the same for any type of investing, whether it's the markets or it's real estate, jewelry, art. You've got to have the initiative to recognize it's an opportunity. And as Dan said, this is an opportunity. We're not going to see prices in New York lower, after COVID. We have sites for next year and COVID changes and we're able to get back into the norm again. So I think that if you have the opportunity and the wherewithal to do it, now is the time.
Thank you. And Rebecca, one question that's just come through: where do I buy ALROSA diamonds or jewelry, and what kind of diamond is the best investment?
Okay. Well, we sell our diamonds all over the world in every market to wholesalers and retailers. So all of our diamonds come with a passport, complete, story of the journey of the diamond and its provenance and origin. So you'll always know when it's a ALROSA diamond from one of our mines in Russia. I think all diamonds are good investments. It's a personal choice. It depends also on, how much money you have to spend. But whether it's, the smallest diamond that becomes something that gets passed on from generation to generation and then serves as a talisman of sorts within your family, to, a diamond that we currently have now on auction at Sotheby's, which is a 14-carat oval, pink, purple, vivid diamond, one of a kind. They're all unique, they're all special, and, they all have inherent value. So you can't go wrong.
Great, thank you. And Dan, final question for you. What's been the most surprising thing opening the towers during this time?
Well, this is a really good question, because when you plan for something, you expect it to succeed. But sometimes even when it does succeed, it's surprising. So when we prepared for the opening of the towers, which we opened at the end of February, so we literally had a matter of 2 weeks, of non-COVID shutdown time. But we planned in advance to have vast virtual tools that we could reach out across the world, because we anticipated, we believed that we would have buyers who know the brand and want to be a part of it, that would never come here to purchase, that we would give them a presentation online and they would make that purchase. So when COVID hit, we had a lot of these assets already completely in place or almost finished. And we were able to very seamlessly begin to reach out to not only people all over the world, but someone next door who we couldn't meet with. And so doing that in a pandemic, an actually global pandemic, and actually having people transact as we wanted them to, as we expected them to, in the end was a little surprising, because we had buyers both domestically and foreign who transacted in that virtual platform during the pandemic, and that has continued. I just did another one, a couple of weeks ago, also virtually, someone from another part of the world. So that's one thing that was definitely, even though you plan for it, sometimes it surprises you, especially under the circumstances. And then the other thing that was a very pleasant surprise, which we had hoped would happen, is that New Yorkers have decided that this is a premium residential address. New Yorkers have really bought into and want to be a part of this address at 303 Park Avenue and the legacy of it. And of course, as I mentioned before, the towers were always a residence. And that's been a very wonderful surprise too, because you just never know when you open a project who's going to want to be a part of it. But whenever New Yorkers give their stamp of approval, you know your development's in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's simply beautiful, the restoration. So many congratulations, and wishing you all the best in all of the projects and brands that you're working with. Dan, Rebecca, and Kathy, thank you so much. It was a great, insightful conversation. I learned a lot around the investment world in luxury assets, and it was incredibly informative. So thank you, and a special thank you to Waldorf Astoria Residences, Dan, Anna, Sarah, and the team for being a great partner for this series. And most importantly, thanks to all of you that joined us and for your great questions. In the meantime, stay well, stay healthy, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again, everyone.